mention the MVP odds. Let's play a game.
Okay.
Let's say I give you $100.
Nice. Thank you for this $100.
That was the whole game.
What shall I do with it?
That was the whole game.
Whatever shall I do with this $100 I just came into possession of?
$100 to bet on NFL MVP 2025. I've got odds.
Okay.
Do you know the favorite?
I haven't even looked.
Jackson is the favorite.
Okay.
It's essentially a
fix.
Almost four-way tie.
Doesn't really make any sense. Right.
Jackson plus 550, Allen plus 600, Mahomes plus 650, Burrow plus 700. Then Daniels plus 850. And I've got, after that, it's like 20-1 and up. How would you bet that? Last year at this time, we're filling in between the draft to schedule and camp. We talked about MVP quite a lot and how Allen was, how did this turn out? Seemingly well-positioned to win. Mm-hmm. And I think of it being for two main reasons, or three main reasons. One, didn't turn out to be like a big division favorite or even division favorite at all. I'm thinking about that now. Like, my point last year was you're going to have to win 13 games. I guess that box was checked last year because the Bills did win 13 games.
Okay.
So you're going to have to win your division, maybe have the top record in the league almost. So I guess I'm saying three things. One would be that they had that opportunity. I'm forcing that one. Another would be the Diggs trade. They took his top two weapons away. So Allen would, in this line of thinking, get more credit.
Heavier lift.
For their winning if they win. And that, I think, happened. Mm-hmm. I think part of the Allen case was Mac Hollins, et cetera.
Right. No
alpha receiver, and he still made it work. It didn't come down to numbers because he really didn't have the numbers. But it's those things, and I think this is consistent and what we were on last year. Like, no way Jackson wins another.
Right.
And he put a season down where he really tested that.
He really took that for a spin.
He was the first team All-Pro.
Yeah.
And I think the only reason he doesn't win
is because of last year.
Is because he'd won two already.
The previous, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, 3 is the most rarefied error in the sport for a quarterback, for an individual. Mm-hmm. And he's not 30. Like, slow down.
Right. I thought the postseason failures would be held against him to some extent, even though it shouldn't enter into it. It's just we're sort of anointing you. And when you made the point about 3 being rarefied air, that was the exclamation point on that point to me. Is that there's going to be enough people that just are not going to want to put him in that category until there's some sort of postseason success. And again, that doesn't have to be by the letter, the rules, or the objective of the voting committee, but I just think it would enter into it. I think that if it's close, I'll defer to another guy because I'm elevating this guy to a place that I'm just going to say I don't feel like he's earned it entirely yet.
However many voters there were that maybe they wouldn't want to admit it, but looked at a bigger picture when it came to him and this award, I think some might have done what you're saying. Like, where are the championships? Where's the Super Bowl? Mm-hmm. Allen's the same, though.
Yeah.
And that vote happens before the playoffs last year, so last year's results in the playoffs don't count, and neither guy got there again.
Right.
So I think it'd be some part postseason because of the way quarterback is associated with postseason success or vice versa. I think another, though, is simply this is not a criticism. He's not so clearly above, especially Mahomes. Like, Mahomes has 2. Are we really going to give Lamar Jackson 3 MVPs before we give Mahomes 3 MVPs?
Right.
What are his weapons, And I guess maybe the points are attached. The playoff success Mahomes has had is a big part of why he's got this, and it's not like it's a fluke, but he's got that kind of status that he does. So if that's not the same thing, I think it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But both worked against Jackson and would either be different going into this year. I don't think so. Mahomes didn't win a third. Allen won 1. Burrow doesn't have 1. Burrow can at least say, I've got a Super Bowl appearance, unlike Allen, unlike Jackson, like so far. But he's not on the board yet, and neither is anybody else of these younger Hurts, and Daniels is in the conversation now. So I think maybe Jackson's narrative is the same, unless, he does the same stat line as last year, which then I think voters will go like, all right.
I have no choice but to anoint you this because, I also think some factor could be, again, like I'm not in the minds of these voters, but I think there is within some people who vote for some awards. Is that vague enough? The league benefits from having more guys that win that award. I think it's good for the league. It's good for the different markets and the fan bases, and I think it's just good for the marketability of the league. If you've got, it's not just Mahomes or Jackson every year. Here comes Josh Allen. I think there's some tendency to it's his turn. Yeah. Here's another really great year, and on the heels of, you could have really statistically done what you did with Jackson's year this past year when Josh won it the year before with Allen versus Jackson. There was some justification for feeling like Allen deserved it over Lamar that year. He had the best record, but his numbers, some of them, yards, touchdowns, a lot of things, sort of were behind Allen pretty significantly. But so turnabout's fair play in that way. But now Allen's got one, and I think the same year from Allen, he has a very hard time winning a second one. Because of all of this, right? If people were quietly, not even conscious of it, penalizing Jackson for already having two and not having any postseason success, they spun to Allen. Okay, here, it's credible enough. Allen won't have that benefit this year. There'll be more like what you just indicated. I think of a tendency to look back at Jackson boy, I probably was too hard on him last year. It's going to be softer. I think a voter would feel more compelled to reward Jackson after sort of penalizing him for nothing. I mean, he didn't do anything wrong necessarily, but I think it would just be harder for Allen to have the same year and win.
Yeah, someone else has to make a case, though, right? I'm not saying that has to happen, but what you didn't have last year is really a third option. Your third option last year was Saquon,
right?
Who finished third. Burrow missed the playoffs, or else he wins.
Probably,
I
right.
think.
Yep.
He had the most yards. He had the most touchdown passes. I mean, they just didn't make the playoffs, so you're disqualified. I think it really did seem twisted each of the last 2 years in the end because of Allen's numbers. It's actually funny because I make this point about James Cook. The numbers from 2 years ago are better, but last year Cook sets the touchdown record, Bill's touchdown record. Allen wins the MVP. Both guys the year before, I think you could at least show, had better seasons, but the team didn't. And I think it's 2 years ago now, or a year and a half, but when you go back and think about how that manifested, when voters were probably kind of giving in to Jackson winning a second, the Bills were 6-6. So I feel like maybe it was just too late.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be how it works, but that is human nature, is to sort of kind of maybe discount maybe that's ironic, but discount the end of the season a little bit because you've already kind of decided who you're going to vote for, right? So Jackson ends up winning almost unanimously when the Ravens were the one, but he didn't really have the numbers.
Yeah, I remember sort of settling for, it's going to be Lamar. Sure, he deserves it. And then when I found out, so much so that I did not spend really any time at all looking at their seasons against one another. I would look at the case for Lamar. I sort of knew what kind of year Allen was having. But it took really until Aaron Schatz voted for Allen and then pointed out the discrepancy in the stat lines. Oh my gosh, it's a much better year there for Allen. But this is how it goes. And then that sort of happened the other way the following year with Allen getting the award over Jackson, despite a statistically more impressive season, is just kind of an oddity, I think, within the whole thing. But
I wonder if the voters, again, not like it's necessarily a conscious thing, but are kind of hoping for someone else, even if it's Mahomes, who's won two,
right.
Someone else to make a case that can kind of change the script when it comes to this award and these other two guys, because it doesn't have to just be a two-man race, the same two guys every year, especially when neither of them is the quarterback of the Chiefs,
right?
Who just win the conference every year. So who could that be? If I gave you $100, are you putting it on Allen? I mean, not all of it, some of it. 6-1. 6-1. I'm not Sammy P here with like, well, it was 8-1 last week, so too late, or something. Like I have no prior, action here when it comes to this. That's also, since I mentioned that point, you're also trying to predict the market, get closing line value, and if you think somebody's going to. If Allen's going to go to 2-1 or something like that for some reason, you'd want to. It'd be more of a reason to bet him now.
Talking this through the way that we have, I don't know, and this is not at all to be taken as I don't think the Bills and/or / Josh Allen are going to have an excellent year, but I don't know that I would bother. I think it's going to be really hard for him to win a second one in a row.
That's right. It's not only two; it's two in a row.
We will not have the playoffs this year for him to put any kind of exclamation point on it. So you're just really going to be looking at the year, which again, that's how it is every year. But it's just you reach a certain level. I think it gets harder to sort of gain entry into the next level of favorite. And I just think he's going to have a harder time this year. I also think Lamar, unless he has a year that like really measures up to his statistical prowess from last year, I think a third is tough. I would be inclined to put, I'd want to find a long shot in there, Dak Prescott, or you mentioned Jaden Daniels. I might divvy up my $100, some of it on each of those guys, and then put the rest on Mahomes. I think he's been the best guy so far in this era, and if he has a year where with healthier receivers, where it looks more like a Mahomes season, like unlike the dip of last year, really, and he's Mahomes and he's already got the Super Bowls, I think it's easier to elevate him to a third MVP.
Yeah.
So I would, thinking about the odds and trying to guess with these voters how they would be motivated and what would get them to act, I would like Mahomes out of that group probably the most.
I think that makes sense. Prescott would be one of your favorite 40-1 for Prescott.
Just because that's a big famous team, and if they have a 12-win season or something, I could see him throwing for 5,000 yards.
Okay. They would probably need to win the division, and that's going to be tough, but it's not impossible. And, man, he's a player that people just don't like Dak Prescott for some reason. It almost never sounds like a good argument, which when you hear people, ragging on him. He certainly has fans too, but he's somebody that I think maybe too many people have decided is just kind of mid to win the MVP. Speaking of him, 2 years ago that when Jackson won and Allen got the one vote, Prescott was my pick for that award for a lot of that season. I thought he was the most deserving that year. Then he had the game here.
Right.
And that went so badly, I don't know if he had a chance. I don't think he was favored at that point. I think Jackson probably was, but still kind of died there. And Allen threw for, 91 yards in that game. So that didn't help him either.
Yeah.
The Dallas-Buffalo game may have been big in that vote.
Do you still have the odds up there?
I do.
Where's Jalen Hurts in all this?
20-1.
Okay.
That's pretty juicy.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Defending Super Bowl MVP.
Right.
Where's my credit? What does his year have to look like? He was not in the top 11. I guess maybe he did not get a vote at all last year. What did they do, 1 through 5 last year maybe? He did not get a vote. He's not on the list. He had a better season than that, right?
Right.
Darnold got 3 vote points.
Right.
And he was good.
What is the knock on Hurts? Is that there isn't enough passing volume? Just football
what is
card
the knock
stats?
on Hurts?
What is it exactly?
That's the right question. I don't know. Team wins like crazy.
Right.
Is his team too good?
Maybe.
Is it like sort of the argument against Sean McDermott for Coach of the Year because Allen's too good? So
right.
I That's a tough one. What is the argument against Hurts? Barkley might have been some of it.
Yeah.
But Derrick Henry existed, and he didn't get a vote, and Jackson finished second. Maybe not apples to apples.
Yeah.
But Barkley had 2,000 yards, but Henry he crushed. He had 19-21 and more touchdowns than Barkley on fewer carries. Oh, scandal. Scandal. All right. MVP this year, if you want it, 803-0550. Mike Tenier will join us. Bulldog mentioned Aaron Schatz. He and Mike worked together a long time at what was then known as Football Outsiders. Mike will join us. We'll talk some other stuff, too. Sabres. Well, I don't want to tell you.
Okay.
But one topic involves nudity.
Oh, my.
Yeah. That's not the Sabres one either. The Sabres one has nothing to do with nudity, but I do have a funny thing for you from the weekend.
Hurts only threw for 2,900 yards.
What's Allen? 37. Is that a big enough difference? 50 a game?
I think so. Okay. 18 touchdowns. Passing. I'm just looking at his passing stats.
But and he has the rushing like Allen does.
He does.
But that's the difference between the award winner and zero.
Right.
Is Allen to Hurts in the MVP voting last year. Your thoughts, 803-0550. Thanks for being with us as we start another week. Mike Schopp in the Bulldog.